Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm an LM pilot, and in today's video we are going to do the RNAV visual approach into runway 33 at Salzburg. Now the Salzburg airport we're using is the free one from the World Update Austria kinda number 2. And it's really good looking, and this is a wonderful approach to fly, so I'm sure you are absolutely going to love this one. But let's first of all start in cruise flight over here and go over the FMS preparations and all the approach preparations that we would do for an approach like this. We're going to start having a look into our weather conditions and having a look into our approach information. So you can see right now it's wind 310 at 4, slightly variable, no clouds detected, with 10 kilometers visibility, 26 degrees, QNH 1017. The approach is initially flown as an RNAV approach, so it's rather important that we tune the correct QNH here in order to get the correct vertical management. For that reason, we are going to pre-select the QNH on our altimeters. So now let's go into the second step for the approach, and that is actually preparing for the approach. So we're coming in via the waypoint Badit, and from there we have the Badit to Romeo arrival, which leads us from Badit towards Salzburg VOR. Now if we look at the RMP visual approach chart, you can see that it actually doesn't start from the VOR, but that you only have a couple of RNAV points over here. Now that's something that you can't really solve in flight simulation. In the real world, ATC would eventually clear you to one of those Whiskey Sierra points over here, and then they would clear you for the approach like that. If we do take a look at the plan mode though, we can see that Salzburg VOR and the Whiskey point are not all that far apart from one another. As you can see, they're basically right on top of one another, so it's really not going to be much of a problem. We're going to enter the approach airspace over Badit, and then he will probably clear us either to 833 or to 831 over here. So that is how ATC would solve that stuff in the real world. Now from there on, you can see that we do fly right-hand downwind for the runway 33, all the way to the missed approach point, which is Whiskey Sierra 835, and there is a speed restriction of a maximum of 185 knots on that one. Now, out of 835, that means our missed approach routing leads us to the right over here, back towards 831 for the go-around. And that's the problem. In order to be able to cover this, the Airbus has to abandon the routing right over there on the flight plan page. So you can see this is what it's doing over here. It flies until 835, but no further than that. So after 835, you have no more lateral guidance. You can't simply insert those waypoints on the flight plan page, otherwise your missed approach is going to get messed up and no longer going to work, apart from the fact that you're not allowed to do this edit according to Airbus. Now, what are we going to do then in order to help ourselves with the correct tracking of the route? Well, there is quite an easy trick that you can use in order to still have those waypoints 836 and 837 available, and that is entering them on the fix page. So the fix page can be accessed if you go on to the left LSK of the from waypoint and then onto fix info up here. And now we can start entering. So we've got Whiskey Sierra 836. Whiskey Sierra 836. Now we can press the arrow to the right to get to the next page, and it's going to be Whiskey Sierra 837. Okay, and last but not least, we can extend the center line down here. And for that we need to use a little trick. So we are going to enter the landing runway on the third fix page. So it's going to be Salzburg 33. And that basically marks the threshold of the runway. Now in order to draw an extended center line, we just need to enter the radial outbound from here. So the runway track, as you can see, is 333. The opposite course, 153. For this reason, I'm going to enter radial 153 on here. Okay, and now if we go to the flight plan page and just go all the way down, you can see we have this. So we have our Whiskey Sierra 836, 837, And then we've got the runway point down here, together with the extended center line. And these features are going to help us judging our altitude and flying the visual part of the approach once we are past waypoint 835. Now, we can use a couple tricks over here, and we should write ourselves a little post-it in order to prepare for that approach. So you can see that the chart down here and up here tells us exactly how long those segments over here are. Now, in order to achieve a smooth, constant descent, we can simply do some calculations. The airport is located at 1,411 feet. We have 1.4 miles to Whiskey Sierra 837. Now, per nautical mile, we need 300 feet of altitude. In other words, if we've got an airport elevation of 1,411, then we can calculate this backwards towards Whiskey Sierra 837 to cross it at approximately 450 feet above the field elevation, so looking at 1,000... let's say 1,800, just to make it easy. So we aim to cross this point at 1,800. Now we have 3.3 miles in here, so to make it easy, we can aim to cross this one here at 2,800. And that way we can calculate all this good stuff backwards. Now, we don't need to worry about the crossing altitude of Whiskey Sierra 835, because we do have a vertical profile defined on here, 3 degrees, inbound 835. And on our flight plan, we can see that this definition actually exists right over here. So all we gotta check is the altitude constraint of the 835 point, 3,981, and just a rough cross-check of that one. So we are looking at about, make that 8 miles, give or take, to the final. So 8 miles from here, roughly 2,400-ish. So if we're looking at roughly 4,000 feet over here, then we should be good to go. And you can see over here, it is roughly 4,000, so the vertical profile that we have in our FMS makes sense. For the rest of the approach, we don't really need any nav aids, since it is an RNAV-based approach. However, I am going to deselect my FLS over here. Well, going on then. On the progress page, Salzburg runway 33 is in. We fill out our descent page and our approach page as normal. Over here, once again, make carefully sure that you have the correct QNH. So we have 1017, 26 degrees. And just to cross-check all of that, let's take a look again. So 1017, 26 degrees, 310 at 4. Alright, and that's that. Last but not least, we do have a minima requirement on the approach, and that's down here, 3,980. And in order to be able to fly the approach, we need at least a cloud ceiling of 2,600 feet. And always remember that is 2,600 above the field elevation, pretty much exactly where the minima is, and a flight visibility of 5,000 meters. Okay, so 3,980 is our minimum. And we can enter this. Last but not least, even though we are flying a lightweight A319, for a circling maneuver like this, I would typically prefer a config full landing, because it just makes it that bit slower. You can see if we go config 3, it's a couple knots extra, 137 the approach versus 128, so 9 knots difference. If we fly that bit slower, it means everything will go a bit slower on the approach as well. That's going to make our approach quite a bit easier. Alright, and that is the vital steps of our approach setup over here. With all of that out of the way, I'd say we fast forward a little bit, and then I see you as we're about to enter the approach area and actually start flying the approach. And we're now flying the initial stages of the approach for the RNAV visual runway 33. As predicted, ATC has cleared us direct Whiskey Sierra 833, and we are now about to join our final approach. Just to get you in the loop again, I did select the glide slope function again of our FLS, and we are now approaching that very part of the approach. Now, approach mode the approach phase has just activated itself, so the aircraft is going to start slowing down. and the glide slope does come alive over here. I am going to arm the final approach mode here already, so we've got F lock and F glide slope blue, and we are now going to level off at the altitude and start reducing our airspeed. Remember, we had quite a couple of speed restrictions over here, starting at Whiskey Sierra A35 maximum 185 and thereafter 145, and in order to get that approach stabilized, I will configure the airplane for landing a little bit earlier already. So, I'll start. We're going to start slowing it down now. My speed brakes are extended at the moment, as we did come in a little bit fast due to the shortcut. Airport is located right over there and is inside already. And it's always a good idea to get yourself into the right mindset for the approach. So, looking at the chart, you can see we're basically flying around a little hill over there and then circling right in front of that mountain over there. So let's just look outside again. We can see the mountain over there and the hill over here. So that helps us get an idea of what our approach looks like. Alright, flaps 1. Let's get our aircraft slow. The speed restriction only applies from here onwards, but we really don't want the aircraft to mess it up. So flying a little bit slower definitely can't hurt us over here. Especially since we are flying an A319 today, which is rather hard to slow down anyway. Okay, flaps 2, and we should be descending. For some reason the plane is not. That's fine. Then we are just going to use open descent over here, make it down to our minimum. Gear down. Yeah, the field is inside over there. So at any time now, inbound to the missed approach point, we are going to turn off the autopilot. I will keep auto thrust engaged so that we can ease our workload a bit. Okay, flight directors off. LS can also go off. We'll select track FPA and finally set the runway track, which is 333. Okay, so all that good stuff is complete, and we are now coming in a little bit high. We should be in 4,000 over here. So coming in a tiny bit high, so let's go landing flaps 3. But we are well within our speed restrictions, and we are within a decent altitude profile. You can't make use of anything on the FMS management or managed side of things now, because we are now flying fully visual. Remember the altitudes that we have assigned to ourselves earlier on? We are of course going to make use of those. Okay. So missed approach altitude is going to be 6,000, and that's now set. And with all of that completed, let's go flaps full. We are basically in landing configuration and ready to go. Remember the chart, these are overfly waypoints that we've got over here. So we are going to overfly the Whiskey point that we have, or the Whiskey Sierra we have in front of us. And only then we are going to start our turn onto the base. Make sure that our speed is low enough. 145 is a restriction, and that restriction is there so that we don't smash into that mountain over here because of our turning radius. So do keep that in mind. Okay, I forgot the spoilers. Here we go. Landing checklist. Landing checklist is complete. Alright. Let's start our final turn. And we are clear to land at this point.
Speed.
No. You're on auto thrust, my friend. But okay, I'm gonna give it a couple of knots more here. Let's make it 130. And here we go. Okay, so our runway is located right over there. So you can see it is a little bit of a tight approach that we are flying over here. But just a quick cross-check, 1400 is our runway elevation. The runway is now about 2.5 miles away, even though we are flying a turn. So we got to descend a little bit quicker here.
1,000.
Checked. And the way I'm flying this now is that I'm imagining visually the extended center line, and I'm basically trying to fly the airplane onto that visually imagined extended center line that we have right in front of us. So basically down here is where the center line goes, and that's where I'm flying my aircraft towards. So a little bit more bank now to be sure that we get it onto the profile. Make sure the vertical speed is under control.
4.
And here we go. So we're right on the poppies, 2 whites, 2 reds. Keep it on a nice 3-degree glide slope. And then we can fly the aircraft down.
200. 100. 50, 40, 30, 20, retard.
Okay, don't float, the runway isn't all that long. And here we are! Spoilers, reverse green, decel. And with that, welcome to Salzburg, everyone! I sure hope that you enjoyed this one. Do let me know in the comments below. I'm very much looking forward to your feedback. As always, be sure to like, comment and subscribe, and if you really like what I'm doing on this channel, I would appreciate a small donation through the Buy Me Coffee link in the video description below. Until then, see you all next time. Last but not least, this is a really beautiful approach. Do give it a try, even though it might initially take a couple of attempts to get it right. But with that out of the way, I am looking forward to see you all again on the next one.